Aureus, forgive me. I steer this weapon of deliverance to a worthier servant than I.
The metal for this crusader. You failed.
Lo, the latest receiver of his grace. Great potential dwells within you, doubtless, for you to be chosen thusly. And so does Aureus' wisdom guide my hand in the bestowment of this subsequent boon. Your flesh has been made sacrosanct with the mark of the Dark Crusaders. Prove yourself worthy of this gift. Seek me in the bowels of the bridge. Our work is of the greatest import.
Fate has always been a cruel mistress. In life, I was a hallowed sentinel, one who fought to uphold justice and those in need of its grace. A duty that only ends with death. But there I stood, alive, with this ominous lamp nestled at my side. It was ethereal in nature, as haunting as the secrets it kept within. It was silent, but spoke 1,000 words with its pulsing blue light and wispy smoke. Stumbling through the caves, my head was a fog. I came across a dead end to which the lamp at my side melodiously resonated, and as I hesitantly raised it, I found myself transported to another realm. I found everything in this place to be a twisted reflection of reality, where dark imagery littered every corner, madness etched in every design. It was like the other side of a coin, similar but offset, where the destinations were the same, but the paths were different, allowing traversal where there wasn't any before. Forcing open the heavy door showed a world unfamiliar to me. I sighted a tower in the distance, standing grand and isolated, imposing as well, enough to demand attention. I shifted my focus from the tower to the vestige in front of me. The lamp explained that I'd resurface here if I was defeated, and that I could also improve myself for coming battles ahead, but I still don't trust it. My recollection of Otto was of a burly warrior, whose strikes were slow but heavy. He stood tall and stout, a lone bastion, fated to die here in the name of duty. His armor was dirty. It wasn't maintained, which meant either Otto was a dead man walking, or he had nowhere to go back to. I wasn't sure if I was even fighting a man anymore, or some mad, battle-crazed ghoul. The lamp was feeding information into my mind, acclimatizing me back into the warrior I used to be. It was invasive, distracting me from my fight. It was fortunate that Otto was mindless enough to only use the same attacks on repeat, so the fight ended fairly quickly.
I always wondered if there were others. You're probably thinking that lamp's just a tool to be used as you see fit. Take it lightly, and you'll find it's the other way around. Mark my words. I don't know who you are, and I don't care. But since it seems Adir has you marked, making you a bigger threat to the Rogar serves us both. If you know any kind of freedom, you'll do the same. You carry the lamp long enough and you'll see history repeat, over and over. If you don't want to keep retreading the same ground yourself should you fall, make use of this.
The vista from atop of the bridge was a small comfort. The giant mountain hand was consistency for someone like me, who has slept through an age. I took the time to gather my thoughts and process a world changed.
O holy Aureus, by your radiance grant me the strength to continue to endure these dark days, to lay bare the path to salvation for my wayward brothers and sisters, so we may walk it together, and to strike down all those who would see our will defied. Even as our suffering continued, I honored my pledge of patience to the exactor. And yet you now appear before me, a stranger, bearing what was not yours to receive. A betrayal made flesh, and one I cannot brook.
Not even a moment to rest before being thrown back into the fray. I approached Pietà hesitantly. The closer I got, the more she towered over me. Her attacks carried the momentum of her spins and leaps, gathering more force and range than I expected. But these giant movements also left the widest openings to be exploited. Each hit I took burnt like the sun, embedded under my skin thanks to the luminous blade extending from the thorned hilt in her palm. Throughout the fight, my body finally began to wake up, remembering the old ways. I kept my distance, moving cautiously until it was time to dig in and block the wide swing coming at me. Things were going quite well, until she grew wings. Now a blood-stained angel, she blitzed across the battlefield, raining down radiant swords and forging clones to swing viciously in staggered brutality. I had to be quick with my strikes, and even quicker with my movement to match her newfound aerial onslaught. To be honest, I had no idea why I was fighting, or what transgressions I committed, but none of it would matter if I didn't survive the encounter first.
Brothers and sisters, you honor us and all who came before you with your sacrifices. While I wish they were unnecessary, my wishes will not ease your suffering, but I pray my sorcery does.
Welcome, Dark Crusader. My name is Dunmire, and I am an exactor of the Dark Crusaders, the holy order of which you are now an honored member. The Church of Orien Radiance has assigned to me the duty of purging Mornstead of its Rogar blight and ensuring the ancient tyrant Adir knows no liberation from his enduring imprisonment. While the schism between the Church and Judge Cleric is of long standing, she and her hallowed sentinels, now perverted, did at least construct Mornstead's radiant beacons, which have prevented Adir's return for centuries. But now, you stand corrupted and on the verge of collapse. It is to these 5 beacons you must turn your eye. Use the Umbral Lamp to cleanse them of Adir's destructive influence, and deliver salvation to a world on the brink of perdition.
By Aureus' divine will, I live again. It's a miracle. And to think I raised my sword to you, when all along you were a divine instrument sent by him to deliver my death and rebirth and bring clarity. Forgive me, Lampbearer. I'm Pietà of the Hallowed Sentinels. And as Aureus sustains me, so too will I sustain you. Whether by making manifest your potential or through my healing blood, contained within the sanguinarics you carry. Should you find any saintly quintessences, bring them to me, and they can bolster the power of my blood further still. The beacons must be cleansed, the hallowed sentinels restored, and Adir's malignancy eradicated. Through whatever is to come, fellow chosen of Aureus, we stand together in service of him.
So the exactors found himself a new instrument, as exactors are wont to do. And given that lamp was intended for me should his paladin fall, and yet now here you are, lamp bearer. Well, it seems I was right to doubt the value of a Dark Crusader's word. I'm Stoneman, Captain of the Fidelis, a group of good men and women who've made a stand against the madness which has possessed the rest of the Hallowed Sentinels. We made a vow to restore our order to its former glory, whatever the cost to ourselves. And by Judge Cleric's grace, we'll honor that vow.
A lot has changed from before, especially within the Hallowed Sentinels. I could not believe what I heard. Tales of schisms and suspicions. I walked through Umbral once more, contemplating my current plight. All of this, hidden behind a lamp.
The cleric's welcome comes behind the edge of a sentinel's blade, more often than not in this place. Makes me curious how you're still breathing.
Her words smouldered like hot coals, subtle but still vengeful if provoked. Still holding up my guard, I kept on listening to the bloodied stranger.
Nah, on second look, you're not just another deluded lamb, are you? You know, not long ago, I saw a Dark Crusader carrying that same lamp. Now it's in your hands. Again, curious. I know they'd see you rejuvenate those obscene monuments preventing Adir's return. Don't. That's a threat. But also advice. Adir rewards the faithful.
Pilgrim's Perch was a dilapidated shantytown of hanging platforms and makeshift walkways, held together by the same madness and blind faith of those who lived in it. It was evident that this place was made from necessity rather than careful deliberation. Each step was a test of faith, with creaking planks eroded by the heavy rain being the only footholds. I was honestly impressed at the structure. To have built it on the side of a cliff face must have been a challenge, especially with the limited materials at disposal. However, it didn't help that the denizens of this place wanted to do nothing more than kill, sporting spiked helms and a feral fighting style consisting of headbutting the floor. I wasn't sure if it was going to be death by 1,000 cuts or by gravity. The best course of action was to play for an opening and hope I had enough space behind me. However, in spite of all of these threats, time would prove none of these to be the biggest. The biggest killer was my overconfidence. Using the lamp to illuminate the path ahead of me allowed me to walk over umbral structures without having to pass into the umbral. There was a slight thrill in being able to cast a window into another realm and walk along its edge, something only I could see, only I could feel. However, if the light faded, my life was as long as it took for me to hit the solid ground below. So, after some careful platforming, I entered a cave, and while I've never been more thankful for solid ground, my stability was disturbed by a sharp clanging sound ringing out. Galinda looked like an exotic bird trapped in a rusted cage, guarded by a warden and its fierce companion. I chose to abuse my height advantage, staying safe on top of the cage to whittle away at them. I released Galinda and headed further down through the elevator shaft, a little concerned by whom or what I might find. Luckily, the first face I saw was a familiar one.
So, you're starting to see through their lies. Church, crusaders, sentinels, corrupt hypocrites, butchers and madmen, the lot of them. Adir, the one true God, stands on the verge of finally returning and restoring order to this broken world. And what do? Defy him. Fucking heretics. Name's Damaros. And I'm wondering if Adir might have a purpose for you.
Damaros spoke with great passion, but gazing upon where there used to be a hand, I wondered if her passion bordered on fanatical.
It takes strength to survive in this world, and Mornstead's no different. Adir's got no time for the weak, and neither should you. Cut them down and take what they've got for yourself.
The Forsaken Fen was a warm drink for the soul, filled with autumn leaves and generous illumination. It was a much welcomed sight from the turgid paths of the perch and the dank, tight caverns that followed it. With the first beacon in sight, I was closer to my goal. But my confusion grew in this brief respite as Damaros's words replayed in my mind.
I know they'd see you rejuvenate those obscene monuments preventing Adir's return. Don't. That's a threat. But also advice.
Did the church truly get drunk on their own power? Did they usher in this chaos? Was I lied to? Something isn't adding up. There are consequences when acting in ignorance, and it seems in mine, I didn't have the whole story to begin with. Shit. Whatever the hell this abomination was, it had the hunger of a bloodthirsty shark and the maw of one too. Judging by the surrounding bodies, I assumed it's been feeding well, but not well enough. Its savage swipes and leaps rippled the blood-tinged fluid that flooded the area, blinding me with every upspurt. I was pinned up against the wall, forced to take in the foul smell of the beast as its ravenous red eyes stared into me. Avoiding its toxic fumes was another challenge, as well as avoiding the onslaught of thrown entrails, almost making me gag inside of my helmet. I also had to contend with not tripping up on the exposed bones protruding through the floor. I could feel myself brushing against chipped rib cages and smashing through skulls with each panicked step. I tried staying close to avoid being rocked by its elongated arm, but it would let out a piercing shriek, throwing me back. This thing had an intelligence. It was just overwhelmed by primal instinct. A few more slashes and the lacerations bled out the beast. I could not imagine what this thing might have been before, but I was about to find out.
Come to Aureus, my child. Yes. Enter my embrace. Oh, may your flesh sustain my divinity. Bless you. Bless you.
Since when did cannibalism fall under Aureus? Cutting my way out of the congregator's den, I saw the forsaken fen for what it truly was. The lush trees became dead and barren. The clear waters dispelled into fetid swamps. I stood on top of a land of pestilence and decay, first lulling its prey with sweet promises before violently devouring them in the bile of its stomach. I could sense eyes all over me, hidden away behind the murky fog, waiting for the slightest opening to pounce.
Onwards you march, eh? I hope it's not for any kind of glory, because you won't find a sniff of that in Mondstadt. And certainly I hope it's not in the name of the hallowed sentinels, because take my word for it, they're no better than the Rogar. I've got many a scar to prove it.
A wicker man stood in the distance, burning in defiance. A symbol of sovereignty, perhaps, for the pagans that call this decaying land home. I could feel myself getting sicker with each passing moment. It was a good thing that I found some balms and stashed them away just for moments like these. The hushed saint stuck true to his name. No words, only a weapon brandished. A simple enough message. The fight started explosively with the saint leaping from his steed straight into the thick of it. Just as he had his companion, I was not alone either. I enlisted Damaros into this encounter, where we would trap our opponent with a flurry of attacks from all sides. Despite his large shield and long spear, it wasn't hard to stagger the foe between the two of us. He seemed to be a part of this place, wielding nature in a symbiotic partnership. He disappeared within the waters and reappeared on his horse riding through the battlefield, leaving behind toxic roots in the path. In some cases, the horse would slam down and create a wave of roots, all designed to maim and drain the life from its ensnared victims. Damaros being defeated was inevitable. A few well-timed dodges and some more sturdy blocks, and the battle had reached its final conclusion. Now came the decision that would shape everything. Cleanse or not. To cleanse means to leave fate in the hands of deranged zealots who consume flesh or slaughter indiscriminately in the name of Aureus. The Rogar are monsters. Aggression is their nature. Can they really be blamed for doing the only thing that they were made to do? In the little time I've roamed this new world, I've not seen any of the good that was supposedly what we laid down our lives for all those years ago. Yet, I have not seen enough to make such an emboldened decision on the other end of the spectrum either. The chorus of voices welled up inside of me. Different ideologies, different outcomes. It was suffocating as the cacophony became unbearable. Gazing out to the other beacons pulsing into the sky, I resigned to a decision. I once fought under the judge's banner to bring order, but all I've seen was evidence of a usurpation for an already long-established chaos. I was under no obligation to do anything. Duty died on a nameless battlefield, broken and forgotten. So I left the bog and the first beacon untouched, arriving later at a choked pass where the cliffs slid over me like crushing mandibles.
Damn coward!
Come now. You were half dead already. Anything. I'm merely helping you to your well-earned rest, while helping myself to your splats.
In the name of Aureus, you...
Gods. That's all you people talk about. Aureus this and Nadir that. You have no vision, no ambition. Just so desperate to be ruled. Well, despite what so many think, we have never needed gods to guide humanity. Only the right man for the task.
Who are you?
The future you won't live to see.
Exiting the gorge showed a vague image of a city in flames, veiled behind dense smoke rising from it. What kind of event led to such destruction? I was in no eagerness to find out. The ruiner Rogar was a beast of destructive instinct, charging in with reckless abandon, shedding caution away as easily as old clothes. A direct confrontation with it was a foolish idea. It was a hulking beast, and any contest of strength was a loss for me. Frantically digging into my tools, desperate for a solution, I emerged with only one: poison. It was working better than I thought, but the battle was weighing on me as well. I was dragged into the umbral, losing my second chance. I also had no more charges in the sanguinarix, meaning I had to hold on to the last sliver of life in my body with a steel-like grip. Every dodge was important. It would only take a few more close encounters until I was brushing shoulders with death, and the pressure was building.
He'll make a fine servant, this one. There's a special Rogar tool I need. And before he got his throat opened, a little sentinel birdie told me there might be one down in the Kalrath cistern. I want you to find it. Thousands of years of lies. That's what the world's been fed. Adir was no tyrant. He was a shepherd to humanity. We couldn't be trusted, but he was there to guide us, to keep peace and order and justice. Until the fucking judges. They were no heroes, just greedy heretics who turned people against their god. But the stories say different, don't they?
Greeted by the screams of a world on fire, I was welcomed to Lower Kalrath. As I walked down the ashy path, fires raged with no hindrance and unlimited fuel. The land was scorched beyond recognition and adorned with ornamental banners of flayed skin embellished by a plethora of impaled corpses. Lower Kalrath wasn't the prettiest of settlements, but it was enough for the people dwelling within it.
In light we walk.
It was clear that the Rogar raised this place. Can't mistake the symbol of a deer branded on the walls. I suppose in order to fix the world, you have to break it first. Suddenly, the heat began to rise, more so than just the fires burning around. The Infernal Enchantress stood amongst what I could only assume was something of a market. She was an expert in keeping distance. Even getting closer was a hazard with her aura of flame burning strong enough to burn through iron, cooking me alive within my armor. Along with the umbral parasites guarding her, this all felt like a rigged encounter. It was quiet, with the only creature in sight being this giant hunched over itself. I steeled myself and continued forward. It observed me with a child's curiosity and attacked very much the same, using its giant mass to create shockwaves and shake the earth for lack of a better means of offense. Simple movements made for easy avoidance, opening a clear path to attack its legs and try to topple it. However, as the fight progressed, I felt the creature adjusting. It was creating distance using spurts of magma bursting through the stone floor with violent eruption, and with this, getting nearer was becoming a difficult objective. These small bursts of magma escalated into a sea of lava rapidly spreading across the ground. Running up to the ramparts was the only safe place, but it also made the fight more perilous as I stared down the titanic creature approaching. The top of the high wall provided limited space, so I found myself hugging the extremities of the platform when the giant slammed down with its palm, before quickly repositioning to the furthermost point opposite when its third arm came leaping out of its mouth to grab me. It would launch out like it was on a spring, reeling in to fake out and launch back again. The heat began to soar, cutting off my breath. The giant knelt, and the third arm, forcing its way out of its mouth, casted what would be described as a miniature sun. A supernova erupted, igniting the air with an intense flash of heat and light. As my eyes readjusted, I saw my opening.
music on the horizon. Perhaps that's what will fill the holes in the world. I'll dance in its wake, pluck it from the air and bring it home. It's not so far away. Not so far at all.
There was no time to admire the view, but the smell. That was an involuntary imbibement. This was the underbelly of the city above. A deluge of all the above would expel from tainting their pristine image. To navigate through the waters, I'd have to enter the umbral and trudge through the labyrinthian tunnel system and the husks that loitered in them. In time, I discovered the artifact Damaros had asked me to find. It was a crudely made saw. The less I knew, the better. The skin stealer was a gaunt figure with 4 arms, wielding a flesh-crafted butcher's knife in each. Its assault began almost immediately with a short thrust as a distraction from the large cleaver descending from above. I was beginning to notice something. On its downward slash, it held for a moment. It was brief. A dodge towards its back after the strike was enough for a heavy attack, which after a few repetitions dispatched the creature safely. Upon its corpse, the skin stealer had a key. I discovered that, with it, I could access the drainage control room and pulled the lever inside the chamber, opening up the flooded sewers through sluice gates. Following through brought me into Revelation Depths, a subterranean paradise buried in the recesses of the world. But I'll come back here later. Upper Kalrath had all the signs of a kingdom in ruins, covered in ash and with its people's final moments etched into it. A poor sight indeed, compared with its former glory.
This was it. The moment I handed over the rune of Adir and damned this entire kingdom for generations to come. I was tired, angry. I was never a man of faith, but I thought who better to entrust the rune to than a judge. And look around at what that decision cost. What good was the cleric if she couldn't destroy the rune, or prevent all this some other way? It's always the same story with gods or those like them. They pretend otherwise, but they're just as weak and flawed as those they lord over. But it's my own damn fault for relying on someone else in the first place. Even when I try to do the right thing, it is always how it ends.
Taking a deeper look into Skyrest Bridge and using a key I found along the journey, I entered a haunting mausoleum. The effect was multiplied in umbral and the place carried an ethereal atmosphere, as if I were communing with something divine. I wandered around the area, hunting for any secrets it may bear. As I finished flaying the last of the doorkeepers, the umbral blockade destroyed, I found, left behind, a catalyst, Infernal in nature.
Words are veiled when they speak to me of it, but I know what they think. That by marrying such a minor noble, I'm putting my own happiness before the good of the royal line and the welfare of Mondstadt. But they don't see in her all of the things that I do. This kingdom is my home. I will do everything I can to protect it, as I always have. As you did, Mother. But I refuse to accept that requires forsaking the woman I love. Sophicia only makes me a better man, a better king. And Mondstadt will be all the stronger with her at my side.
Who was this woman, that she had to be locked away in such an isolated place, bound by such a nefarious contraption fixed upon her face? For the most part, she was harmless, until I revealed the catalyst I found earlier. There was a spark there, in her eyes, and as I passed it over, she rejoiced. I headed back to the main hall, ignorant of what I might have set in motion.
Hello again, deathless one. I'm glad you were able to free yourself from behind those bars. Perhaps it was the Golden Gallant who put you there. I couldn't see him by firelight. I wonder where he went. Witness the woe of living rock made flesh by the arrogance of gods. When I carry only thunder in my heart, I worry lightning will strike me twice. Will you bring news of this fallen one's kin? Poor thing. Why such sadness in your gaze? Shall I sprout petals of flame? Will that make you smile?
May your grace sustain me in these most desperate of days, and in the darkness through which I fight, for it seems to encroach ever closer, and I fear the weight of this profane work will crush me, or worse. As ever, I turn to you in my moment of doubt, and will endeavor to remember that this role which perturbs me so is merely a necessity in the performance of your will, and in that, I vow to be resolute. Please continue to hold my brother Samuel in your radiant embrace forevermore. In light we walk.
In this icy tundra, all that remained were undead warriors and rabid hounds. It was a waking nightmare for every second spent here. Powerful and annoyingly accurate arrows always seeking their mark before the archers slinked back into shadow. Brutish warriors wielding axes and ice magic held the front, making the arrows hard to see until the fatal moment. I hated it here. This land wasn't just cold. It was dead. Cut off from the world by its unrelenting blizzard, smothered by the snow that nothing might ever grow here. Like a pillow over a sleeping victim. My flames burned like a lighthouse to a desolate sea. Pointlessly. The battlements and castles implied that something did live here. Once. Seems I was correct. This place housed life in the past, but now it was all drowned in the depths of its own despair. In Umbral, I walked through the submerged remnants of the village, seeing its haunted streets snuffed out of all vitality by the brutal, cold winds.
I was aware of it, of course, but I'd never seen snow before coming here. It's beautiful and cold. I've been hearing tell of this Umbral Lampbearer mission in my wanderings. It sounds simply harrowing. A burden like that. All that pain and death with no respite or reward in sight. It makes me wonder what sort of person you would have to be to, well, bear it.
The epicenter of this frigid wasteland was this crow, slumped in its nest. It didn't do much to attack except for summoning husks of enemies to litter the arena. Attacking the spirit was the only thing that had an effect. But Lucy was not easy to find. Between the husks and the fierce blizzard raging, it was hard to pull her out from Umbral. When I did manage to strike, the crow retaliated, freezing the air around us almost as if he were trying to protect Lucy. Having Pietà at my side made it easier to divide and conquer the dregs that appeared while I waited for the spirit to return. At this point it was obvious. The girl and the beast were connected. Defeating one would defeat the other. As the battle reached its crescendo, the crow let out a final desperate act. I could barely feel my fingers and toes. Dodging ice spikes shooting up from the ground was the only thing that kept my blood from freezing solid. Once its head fell, I didn't hesitate to deliver the finishing blow.
I turn my grateful heart to Aureus, for he is my armor.
It was now time to return to the depths. The light here was dim and the caves were narrow, but it was a short journey down to the bottom where a gaping maw waited. My hands tensed with anticipation around my axes as I walked further in, anxious to what I might find.
Another unfortunate made a slave to unceasing hunger. I pity you. But as bleak as this refuge may be, it is our refuge nonetheless. And you are not welcome here.
Dervla was a gifted bulwark, steadfast and resolute. She stood like a giant over me, taller even than Pietà. She swung her greatsword with ease and each blow carried unparalleled weight. Just blocking knocked me off of my feet. To me, her crossbow must have been shooting out lightning itself. That is how fast her bolts were. A hailstorm of artillery, one wave after the other, followed by a sword strike infused with powerful energies. It took the combined flames of Damaros and I to finally bring her down. Seeing this creature, I had an instant vision of the past. An image of a world filled with ash, of two princes that refused to do their duty, bound as one until the end. Now, I was on my own against this foe, just the two axes in my hands against the four arms of the enemy, its floating shackles bolstered by giant iron nails hounding me from a distance, Dervla's greatsword, and a plethora of umbral blasts siphoning my life to heal itself with every pulse. If I make it out of here, I am done with Umbral and this Dark Crusader nonsense. It never ends well.
And Dervla is dead. Good. There can be no salvation for a Dark Crusader who submits to heresy, for they can plead no ignorance, their perfidiousness a deliberate and eternally damning sin. Leave me. Rest assured, the Council will hear of your holy work.
I may have been branded a failure, but see how Judge Cleric has guided me to this sacred path after all. So many brave, fallen, hallowed sentinels. So much sacrifice, yet we can take comfort in the knowledge they were rewarded for their faith. Life itself is a long and winding path, and sometimes you carry much, sometimes nothing at all. But the most important things are those you carry inside, and they are always with you.
My soul, such a heretical burden. I cannot help but feel like this path only leads me, leads all of us, further from Aureus's light, not closer to it. Exactor, there must be some other way.
So you deem my guidance injudicious?
No,
And your soul of greater significance than the world entire. All other souls upon it.
No.
For one whose family name bears the shame it does, Isaac, you exhibit an unfortunate tendency toward recalcitrance. I would be discontented if the hubris to which your brother succumbed was confirmed a familial sin. Look to the damnatory skin you carry, Paladin, for that is your true burden, not the umbral lamp.
I had seen the stigmas, heard the stories, but to see him, to clash metal with him, Isaac was not to be taken lightly. His sword was extremely swift and as heavy as the burden he once carried. The doubts he manifested as he was forced to challenge his beliefs under the pressure of vindication. Sometimes he struck quick, sometimes he was slow. I gave up on controlling the pace of this fight. I knew I was out of my depth here. Isaac was an established warrior. I was a foot soldier, expected to die on the front lines with the opening volley of attack. If I had any chance of defeating him, I would have to be patient, but ruthless, avoiding his quickly cast lightning strikes as well as not giving him any time to heal. Atop these cliffs, everything seemed so insignificant, distant, almost peaceful. Almost.
Look, you men, at the wickedness which can take root within the walls of our own house if we falter in our vigilance, our rigorousness for even the briefest moment. See how malevolence and greed and weakness can twist the souls of those who once swore a solemn oath and then turn them away from the light of our eternal Lady, where they skulk and plot in shadow, waiting until they can enact their most foul betrayals. But above all else, heed what will be the fate of all traitors who submit to sin.
I held no illusions of spirituality heading towards the manse. This place should have been a place of worship, of dedication to a higher cause. But where pristine tapestries to Aureus once hung, now hung the flayed bodies of heretics dripping the ichor of life across the stone tiles below. Walking through these halls felt akin to a butchery, a torture chamber, a sadist's paradise.
Deliver the punishment which was decreed.
Rector, forgive me, is this not overly severe for the offense in question? To my ears, my fellow pilgrims' words were innocuous.
Are you refusing a hallowed sentinel's command? Because you will find the punishment for such is far more severe than mere flogging.
No, Rector. I apologize.
The main congregation hall was eerily silent. No sermons, no liturgies, not a sound. Zealots patrolled every corner, hunting even the rats for desecrating this holy ground. I resigned that there were no illuminations to seek here. It was all lost. I could see the callousness as even harmless pilgrims entered the fray, thinking their limped flails could have any effect. It was all evidence of their persistent delusion. It was ironic. Those devoted enough to travel from the perch all the way to these sanctified cliffs. And this was their reward. Those not executed as heretics finally allowed to prostrate themselves at this sacred site of praise, only to become expendable meat shields. Such a waste.
Do you bring any better news? I'm afraid not, my lady. The number of those affected rises, and all my blood and our healing sorceries can do is offer temporary relief. And little at that. This disease is unnatural, and I believe I know why. My lady, I believe this corruption to be Rogar in nature.
Impossible. The beacons stand, and Adir and the Rogar remain imprisoned.
I assure you, I
continue tending to the ailing as best you can, until you find the true cause of this malady.
Fighting my way through the courtyards, I was ambushed by two bulwarks, similar to Otto all that time ago. However, unlike then, I wasn't a half-risen corpse. It took barely any effort to dispatch them. If this is the extent of their strength, then they deserve to be culled. Enforcing such punishments on others despite being so weak is a shame I could never tolerate.
So you still live? After a fashion, Revenant. This threshold will mean nothing to you. Yet it was once forbidden for any man to set foot on the grounds of the Abbey. Just one of the many edicts to crumble with the Order's collapse. Still, I hesitate to trespass. But our Immaculate Lady waits beyond. So trespass I must. Judge Cleric cannot know what's become of her hallowed sentinels, or the land we were sworn to protect. She would never allow such atrocities to be committed in her name. I just need an audience with her. When she knows the truth, she'll purify the Order, and the Rogar can finally be driven from this holy soil. Pietà is certain of your role as a servant of Aureus' will. I've yet to see enough to believe that. But I'll admit, there's time yet.
I really thought I was done with plagues and rot after the Fen, but here I was back in the thick of it. Each hit was like striking a sandbag that instead of grain released a pestilent cloud, infecting my lungs with each breath. Senisho was slow, as if the weapon he wielded was too heavy for his gaunt body, and it showed. He moved like he had no control over his body, as if there were poisonous insects controlling his body like a marionette on strings. Despite the umbral parasite, I was tearing him down faster than he could recover. Senisho barely put up resistance and went down quickly. It was strange. Then he got up. Each subsequent death resulted in a violent burst of poison until I was fighting my way through a smog. This was a battle of endurance, between my body being atrophied in real time and Senisho running out of fumes. Finding my way through the gas to find the rising Senisho presented an opportunity to finish this. One more swing and it was over. My reward, one more burst of virulence. As if I didn't smell bad enough already. The interior of the tower personified discomfort. Every aspect of this vertical horror was to inspire punishment. Bodies hung in cages to starve or bleed to death, cramped into prison cells with hooks and chains ready to split apart the poor souls that were held here like ravenous dogs. Starting from the upper levels, I cautiously navigated each descending tier, down rickety ladders, sharp, thorny openings and unstable walkways. The dive was as much a mental battle, reminding me that this place stood alone, that no screams, no matter how blood-curdling, would ever pierce the lifeless stone walls. How many of the people subjected to this punishment were actually deserving of it, expiring in this place instead of a warm hearth alongside their families, their only crime being the smallest of misdemeanors? After removing some caged corpses, the scent of blood thickened greatly. I'd reached the end of this place, and it was time to see what lurked below.
You would defile this sacred place with this horror.
With your very own hands.
Monster, does your blasphemy know no bounds?
If only it were that easy. Brother, we have a guest.
Another sinner.
The Master of Castignations was indiscriminate in his accusations. For a man that size, wearing that armor, to be that quick was unnatural. Tancred moved like two men, striking fast with a man-catcher that would sink its teeth into those it captures, bleeding them dry and reducing them to a shriveled carcass. His attacks bore tremendous weight, and his spells were wielded with the prowess of years of experience, capitalizing on each successive move relentlessly. His defense was strong, but with the captain of the Fidelis at my side, you could say the fight was even.
not so satisfying when you're on the receiving end. Now you will know darkness, brother.
Tancred was hiding one dark secret. A hidden side. Another persona. Something that was tearing at the seams for a while, and now was finally free. He got larger and more feral, no longer resembling the man I had just fought. Its attacks became more acrobatic and savage, meant to rend flesh and leave behind naught but mutilation on its recipient. My slashes felt weak, as if cutting through a wet sponge of gore. Ignoring the sensation and hacking away at its limbs destabilized the creature, and I took every opportunity to make it feel pain, but it was not without response. Stomand and I were tested in our cooperation here. If it weren't such an ordeal, I'd say it was quite the bonding experience.
Quiet.
You can strut around in your grand armor with your imperious voice and your oh so unshakable faith. And you can maim and murder anyone our little black heart desires.
I said be quiet.
But you're only embarrassing yourself like some talentless child mummer. They don't respect you or fear you, no matter what you do to them. They all see clearly through your pathetic facade to the powerless, hypocritical coward you truly are.
Enough!
Shh, sweet brother. You should get some rest.
The vibrant trees and vast views made the chaos of the world below feel like a distant memory. It was strange to see how unbothered the Abbey was in comparison to other places. There were signs of decline, but it was not derelict like some of the other areas I'd visited. It still carried the overall shape of itself, not some twisted, malformed caricature.
This tree grew from a seed into what you see now in a single day. One of Judge Cleric's miracles to edify her disciples. There once hung from it an ancient banner carried into battle long ago by Our Lady herself. A symbol of more virtuous times. And one torn down and disgraced since. Lampbearer, If you should find the pieces of the banner during your journey, bring them to me. I'll mend what's been broken, carry it with me into the heart of the Empyrean, and present it to Judge Cleric as a reminder of what the hallowed Sentinels once were. I have too much hallowed Sentinel blood on my hands to expect or deserve redemption, but I must do what I can for those who can still be saved.
Crossing over to the high walls, I was immediately accosted by another abbess. This one was nowhere in reach. She had a perfect nest right at the zenith to survey and eliminate threats. I panicked, running aimlessly and smashing into stacked barrels before heading to a nearby shelter. That was one hell of an uphill battle. As I opened the ornamental doors, I was abhorred at the sight. I entered the bloody chamber, this screaming gallery of bodies and gore hanging from the ceiling, dripping blood into the baptism pools below. There was a harrowing echo of voices around the chamber, calling out for either salvation or to share in their damnation. In this moment, I felt the weight of destiny. The rune sat in the center on a pedestal, and it seemed as if time ceased to function around it. It was enthralling as it pulsed, yearning for someone to claim it, whispering illusions of vengeance into their ears like a sweet lullaby. I did not expect the Wayfarer to appear. He did make a point of regret when handing over the rune to Judge Cleric, blindly thinking she would destroy it. So now that he found that she didn't, I surmised that he came here to see the rune reclaimed, to deal with it his own way, like he should have from the beginning. There was a strong bitterness in his voice, jaded, disparaged, tired, as if trust was a commodity he could no longer afford. I have to admit, this didn't feel like my fight. At most, I was an interactive spectator, skating along the outskirts while the Wayfarer and the Huntress engaged in their feud. No matter what walls of light she blocked the paths with, or however she hid in her lone phalanx, even in such an open room she was always cornered. Such heavy strikes from my greatsword or the Wayfarer's giant slab of a hammer were too great to defend with such a paltry buckler. Her dashing away or spinning around in her theatrical attacks were useless, just a thing to be removed.
Finally, back where you belong. Stay out of my way, lamp bearer, for your own good.
The banner had not been destroyed completely, and Our Lady heard me. It's a sign there is still hope. And I don't overlook your part in this, lamp bearer. Perhaps Pietà was right about you after all. Aureus, bless us. The banner will be complete again, as will the hallowed sentinels. When first we met, Lampbearer, I did you a disservice by deeming you nothing but Dunmire's instrument. But you've proven yourself to be on the side of righteousness, and for that, I thank you.
The tome was most enlightening, but it offered only the most minuscule glimpse into the depths of Umbral, fragmented suggestions of what I already suspected to be so much more. Those with an interest in Umbral are condemned as heretics by the Hallowed Sentinels, and typically incarcerated within their prison tower. I wonder at what morsels of Umbral insight might be found within those walls. Go and gather what you can. To the Tower, Crusader, and be swift. Yes, the murk clears ever so slowly.
Dunmire's musing into the Umbral eventually brought me down to the depths yet again. Without any distractions, I took in my surroundings. This place resembled something of an altar, a gate. At the top of the structure laid something. As I approached, I found the Exactor's rosary and ring, discarded beside a translucent well. While gazing at the pool, the umbral scourings I received from Molhu resonated, and I was embraced by something otherworldly. Weightlessness couldn't describe it. Emptiness couldn't label it. It was more hollow, a place of endings. It was umbral, but much, much more concentrated. I averted my gaze from the giant creature for fear that if I looked directly at it, I'd start clawing at my eyes and tearing off my skin, desperately trying to disassemble my body. In the brief moment I centered my gaze, I spotted Dunmire, kneeled in supplication.
Attend me, surgeon. I seek a hole for my skull. Bring your saws, your borers. fills me and surrounds me. One must be one with the other. The masquerade has ended. The veil has fallen. And this absurd tangle of wet meat is undone by her majestic beauty!
Oh, Dunmire, you deluded fool. I couldn't run forever. Finally, the Light Reaper and I came to a head in the center of Upper Kalrath. Our game of cat and mouse reaching the apex of the hunt and could no longer be put off. I was always one step ahead, but this time the matter needed to be handled. Isaac and I wasted no time. We ran in, blades swinging, fires burning and lightning smiting. We worked in tandem, covering the other, keeping up the pressure, swapping between as necessity dictated. With Isaac defeated, the fight took on new meaning. This was no longer about avenging a fallen crusader, not passing the torch from predecessor to successor. For what reason now do I have to continue to pretend to be righteous? This fight metamorphosized into one of dominance. So we danced. A clash of infernal flesh against one another. The battlefield was lit ablaze with fire and magma thrown with vicious rancor. Everything else was an afterthought. Weapons were coated in infernal heat and swung with such intensity you'd think we might have dragged the sun down from its distant orbit to watch in envy. Waves of flame flung out from the Light Reaper, along with spinning balls of magma followed by a vicious slam of all four of his blades. Not a moment to breathe. Even then there was nothing but smoke in the air choking from within. We moved erratically, constantly trying to outmaneuver the other. One of us falls here. We both knew that much. Desperation often breaks any masquerade. Andreas finally showed a crack in his mask. Not a moment too soon, but coming straight from the Light Reaper left me in no mood for these theatrics. I've tolerated enough. I commend his effort to take control of his fate, but it's foolish to try and be a king in a game of gods. At last we've reached the point of no return. No more running. No more pathetic tricks. No honeyed words or friendly favors. No escape. But I'm sure he knew that. This was the final gamble that he wagered an entire legacy on. Did I regret it? Partly. Flames danced across the air with passionate and blinding destruction, and when the fire died down, it was back to cold hard metal clanging against each other, a battle of tempered providence. I had no dislike for him. He was the same as I, a man on a self-imposed mission. Redemption in his case. And he was at it far longer than I have ever been. Guilt weighed on him, smothered him like a cloak, and he wore it well. Past mistakes led to current extremities, but I wouldn't deny the knowledge nor the help, self-serving as it might have been at the time, that was still freely given. Clearly, he was a shadow of his former being, a fragment of a whole, but fought on regardless to right his wrongs. His hammer swung down like thunder, cracking the earth below. It moved fast for the giant slab of metal it was. That monstrous strength was only amplified as the Iron One became emblazoned by flame. A vicious conflagration was set in his eyes, but I could see the rage of 1,000 lifetimes in them. He danced like a fire in dry land, meaning that parrying was really my only option for defense. But every fire eventually dies out the harder it burns, and this was no exception. I didn't dislike him. If things were different, but we weren't here for that. The rune is all I needed. If this old soul would stand between it and I, then let him prove his claim to it all the more.
Too damn old.
The Empyreans sat high above the abbey. So high you'd think you were entering the heavens themselves, but no light shone here, and no invocations of divinity could be experienced. Instead, I was greeted by violent winds, torrential rains, towering structures, and a disheveled courtyard of long-dead sunflowers.
As you bless these flowers with your radiance and help them flourish, so too bless me, so I may help all of my loyal brothers and sisters flourish and continue to prove myself worthy of their faith. This land has known much darkness, but together, with hope and devotion in our hearts, we will not only stand ever vigilant in its defense, but guide its ascent into your loving light.
That banner. Stomand. It seems you overestimated yourself, while I no longer called myself a hallowed sentinel. Just once, I offered one last gesture in memory of his journey to vindication. Free of all doubts now, and exhausted of all options, Judge Cleric was lost. No more words, no more talk. I marched with renewed purpose. The hunt continued until I confronted the hypocrisy of a demigod. Every step I took dripped with the venom of sacrilege. I left it marked on the silent guardians of this place. Their presence was a confirmation that I was getting closer. And there I stood, overlooking the area, branded with a giant symbol to Aureus. The god they flocked to escape oppression, only to become so weak to then become the oppressors.
Aberrant's child, you will know peace.
As I dropped down onto what should have been hard marble, I instead felt the crunch of dirt. I looked up to see the battlefields of old, with Judge Cleric standing poised in front of me. She looked just as she did back then. Strong, resilient, with that halo shining so brightly. Evidence of her transcendence and her divine authority. I readjusted the handle of my greatsword for a firmer grip and took a deep breath. This would be the most meaningful battle I've fought on this journey. Yet I felt no pride in it. Judge Cleric approached in all her glory, a sword in one hand, a standard in the other. Smart, covering all ranges. Taking her from behind where the defense was weakest was a solid strategy for avoiding her weaponry. But then I was hounded by searing light in many different forms of spells, thorns, arrows, even thunderous bolts. Staying still was death. Quick movement, that was key. Reading the signs. Still, something did not feel right.
Incinerate your soul with holy fire for this profanation! Lowly blasphemer!
There it was, back to incongruous reality. I felt the wind against my body and the rain on my face as I stared down the radiant sentinel. Radiant with heresy. Her golden armor was singed black, her body drained of its bountiful vitality. Donning a veil affixed to her thorny crown gave her the image of a mourning widow, and the once proud halo, shining beautifully, now embraced an ardent flame. I felt the same flames emanating from her tattered standard as the ones I was using. The bonds of Adir run deep, I see. I wanted to believe in Stomond, that this was all a misunderstanding, but that path closed with his dispassionate end. He thought you could be bargained with, but I won't dare entertain the same notion. I've seen too much, from the bottom of the most depraved pits to the highest of exalted sanctuaries, and they all look the same, wearing different skins but all the same rot underneath the veneer. This started with you, the rebellions, the rune, and everything from it. Too weak to stop it, too strong to understand it. The last hope we have is to stand by Adir and try to salvage the pieces of this broken world as best we can. And if I have to walk over your corpse to do so, then so be it.
Make your cut, Ermengarde.
The last time I looked upon the hand was when I was more naive, freshly risen, and when all of this nonsense of saving the world was a distant thought. Continuing to climb the height of Bramis Castle was solemn. Blood-soaked crystals covered the area, which made the Rogar sorcerer hard to see until it fired its first attack. I rushed in with the full force of a meteor, dead set and ready to cause irrevocable damage. I was getting more comfortable with the slaughter, with recklessness becoming something of a recurrence. I relished each hit, leaning in with a gluttonous hunger, letting my sword fall with enough force to rip my arm from my shoulder. Switching from the sorcerer to the hounds felt like a yearning pull. The weak must all be purged.
Talk, that's all you do. Cajoling arguments, tempting pledges, a deluge in which a woman drowns, and from which a puppet emerges. Deathless One, please bring me proof that the child is not just a figment behind fractured glass, that he...
The interior of the castle was a twisted and contorted depiction of regal elegance, a hollowed-out shell of what once might have been a beautiful, hallowed seat of power, a body that was now infected by various pathogens, leaving giant blood crystals subsisting on its fleeting spirit.
I can take you beyond the castle walls, but then I'm afraid I must return. Too long, and my absence will be noted.
You've already done more for Edivar and I than I can ever hope to repay, Fitzroy. Thank you.
You and the prince are not away yet, and I could not stand idle like so many others and allow the king to carry out such a heinous act.
My husband is not the man he once was, but he will not take my son.
Just as I looked at the castle from them, I saw the respective beacons of the Imperium and the Fife from the high walls of the castle. Strange how they seemed so close, yet the journeys to them felt like an eternity. Again, I began to muse on my actions. It was a heavy chain I was dragging along, ever since that first step out of the caves, bound by responsibility. Now here I stand, about to let the genie out of the bottle, to open Pandora's box. I'm starting to understand Isaac more and more now. This burden can be unconscionable, but what else could I do but keep moving forward? Entering what was formerly known as the King and Queen's chambers, I was captured by a painting of a woman that I felt I've seen before. The same black hair, the same sorrowed eyes. My attention drifted to a small cloth in a crib, settled in the corner of the room. A prince whose fate was unknown to me. A pity that this was the only world it knew. Atop the bed was a mask, the final malevolent raiment fitting of the fate I followed. It felt like it was tailored for me. Once donned, it would never come off. The final seal on the covenant of my ascension.
Iron searing shut wounds. I am almost...
There was little resistance from the sundered monarch. Even now, with death at his doorstep, poised to strike him down, he held fast to restraint. And now my grim work begins. Equipped with his freedom, the Sundered Monarch made full use of it, leaping up constantly to slam down the head of the statue that only moments ago he was so beholden to. I don't know how long he was chained there, but his erratic nature left no time to think. I had to get in there. But with the aftershocks of each slam, it was hard to stay consistent. The heat wave was immense, so much that the floor bled lava and the air burned as it entered my lungs. The Sundered Monarch's eyes glowed red hot, burning with frantic mania. The countless swords plunged into his back, engulfed in a blaze as he charged around the throne room. My arms were heavy and my legs were numb, but I kept swinging. I didn't even realize I was alone now. I took the blunt hits head on, the searing of the swords crashing onto me, white hot from the forge. Everything, just to keep inching forward, to keep slashing. I put my entire being into this fight, to prove I was right, to affirm my choices, that this was the only way, the lesser evil. The strong will survive at the sacrifice of the weak, but the world will go on. Broken, but tenacious enough to prevail.
So my husband finally lies dead. A merciful end after a life long outlived. He is not alone in that. Oh, promise. Look at what we became. Thank you, friend. As much as it pains me, my past is clear to me once more. Regicide is rarely viewed as a favor, but for both that and your efforts in freeing me from the grip of madness, I, Queen Sophia of Mornstead, would see you rewarded with this token. I have no more rage, no more hatred, and I had my fill of grief and sorrow long, long ago. I cannot undo what I did, but deserved or not, all I want now is to rest.
At last, I bring myself to finality. Every lethargic step, every corpse birthed with my blade, was all for this. As I stood in front of this monstrous effigy, I resigned myself to the proclamation of a god.
I have been watching you, my devoted child. There is none more courageous than one who would open their eyes in a world where others would see them blind. And you have proven your strength in the felling of those sacrifices necessary, human and Rogar alike, to earn an audience with me. Welcome, and may your faith steal you further still, for your holy work is not yet done. Mankind betrayed me out of a misguided desire for their own rule, their own age, and in the millennia they have had to shape their own destiny. See what they have made of it. War, greed, hatred, suffering, chaos. They believed they were capable of shepherding themselves, but have proven themselves sorely mistaken. Mankind needs me, now more than ever. You bear my rune, the greatest weapon I ever created. And all it need do is exist. Such is the weakness inherent in the hearts of humans, including those arrogant enough to play at being gods. But even such a weapon can still be refined, enhanced. Through my blessing, the rune is made greater still. Use it to snuff out the blasphemous magic which binds me. Then confront the treacherous witch Azel, the self-proclaimed judge. And let her learn of the patience and righteous retribution of which a god is capable. Finally, the salvation of mankind is at hand. Go forth, my herald, and in my divine name, usher it in.
I was not expecting praise. Talk of salvation was a good sign, but relief can wait. It was enough to know that Adir was still capable of reason. I headed back to the beacons with the empowered rune thrumming expectantly within my inventory. Back to the Fen, the first of the beacons. To Upper Kaurath, the second. The Fife, the third.
There's another way. A surer way to bring me into Adir's embrace. The practice is ancient, taboo. But no true follower of Adir should choose caution over dedication. And I didn't come all this way just to hesitate now. I need to feed upon the flesh of the Rogar, but only the most powerful, those whose strength will bless me in turn. I'm a tongue of flame in the inferno of Adir's vengeance, and a fire needs to be nourished. Make the sacrifices you have to, and bring me that flesh. I knew peace once, for a time. Adir will give me that back. In the divine sight of Adir, I consume this blessed flesh.
The Tower, the fourth. And the Empyrean, the fifth and final. Only one thing left to do now, right, Isel? I took those final fatalistic steps towards her, and as I looked into her dread-filled eyes, I wondered if things might have been different, or if we were always going to end up here in the end. Fate has always been a cruel mistress.